So this is a video that will help you identify rhetorical devices. So we're kind of at the point where we're writing these timed essays and we want to make sure that we can read pretty quickly and that we can locate when we're reading three rhetorical devices. You really have to only use one example for each of those devices. And so that becomes your essay, right? Rhetorical device one is body paragraph one. Rhetorical device two is body paragraph two. Rhetorical device three, body paragraph three. You have your essay. So we need to go back and review all of our rhetorical devices. I'm going to start with juxtaposition. And I'm actually in a slide show that is dated December 8th. If you have this, I will also post it on Google Classroom. Juxtaposition is placing two different things right next to each other or near each other to make a point. So remember that rhetorical devices can be many things at once, and you just need to, your eye needs to see one of those many things, at least one of those many things. So juxtaposition is used to create a relationship or to point out a relationship, as are many of the devices that we're working with. So remember, it's not just that there's a good and bad or a different A, different B next to each other, right? That's half of thinking about a rhetorical device. It's also that they're creating a relationship with one another. So the author or the writer or the speaker is telling us something in the choice of words and placing those words in juxtaposition, right? The words are juxtaposed. So the noun form of this rhetorical device is juxtaposition. That is the thing. That is when a writer places differing things or opposing things near each other. And the verb form is the words are juxtaposed near each other, or the writer is juxtaposing these two things. So you see here we have an older woman and a young baby, and so the old and the young are placed together. If you stopped there, that wouldn't be enough analysis, right? You want to dig into, okay, what new thing is the writer creating out of the juxtaposition? So there's always something new that comes out of the rhetorical device. And here it is perhaps a commentary on life. So you can read into it, and that's where we're getting into analysis, because it's digging deeper, it's connecting to those abstract nouns, those abstract ideas, those universal ideas, and that's where we want to get to in thinking. So again, it's always thinking about the purpose. When you write your essay, you start out by identifying the rhetorical device, you connect it to the meaning, right? And now we have to say, well, what is the purpose of using it here in this essay, in this speech? What is the writer trying to tell us differently with this rhetorical device? It's also used to highlight two different ideas. And so we're looking at things that are juxtaposed. It might create a new feeling, a new emotion, a shift in the delivery of the speech, a shift in tone, the writer's attitude. And we talked about how these things are juxtaposed visually, right? We begin to see how there is a new meaning, or getting us to feel or think differently by the way things are juxtaposed. With juxtaposition, we're looking for some key words to set up perhaps a relationship or a contradiction or a contrast or a connection. So this keyword whether, kind of like whether or not, right? So I see the whether, and then soon after I see the or. And so that's, the whether is signaling there's going to be a difference somewhere. So I'm thinking in my head, okay, could be juxtaposition, right? Could be parallelism. We'll get to that in a second. So whether it's well or ill, right? So we have the two next to each other, and we're going to figure out what is he saying about that? Why would someone pair the wellness and illness together next to each other? And then we're going to compare it to the rest of his sentence to figure out how it's being used in the sentence. So it's how it's being used just alone, the well and the ill, right, between or. And then we're going to think about the context of where it sits in the sentence and how that well and ill, wellness and illness, works in the entire sentence, and then how it connects back to the meaning in the thesis and in your claim. So here we have the and. So instead of the or, the juxtaposition is built by a connection word and. So this time we're going to see, okay, what is on either side of that and? We have human poverty and human life. Okay, and then why are they connected? And then why is it in a sentence with the power, right? So power to abolish. So we're going to figure that out once we dig in, or if we were actually writing the essay. Here we have a juxtaposition with just the word is, okay? So you can choose to say that this is juxtaposition. There are two different things here being compared. There's silence and there's betrayal. However, this is also a metaphor. Is, between two words, is a signal word that there's a metaphor. Something is something else. Right away, your mind needs to think, okay, is a signal. It's a signal for a metaphor. It could perhaps be juxtaposition. Whichever one your brain goes to first, you go with that one. So when something is something else, definitely a metaphor. And then you could say, yeah, it's also juxtaposition. Or you could do both. What is this metaphor juxtaposing? The metaphor is juxtaposing silence and betrayal, two different things to show blank in order to push the audience to think blank and deliver the message of blank. You have half your paragraph, done. But so here, whether or not we go with juxtaposition or metaphor, let's break this down. Silence being passive, not threatening. Betrayal, the exact opposite in its meaning, active and threatening. And so we always want to get to, that's half the analysis, right? The next half is, what is a new meaning created out of that coming together, or that enmeshing when something is just something else and we have two opposites, right? And they are put together. What new meaning do we have? So think about this. It's like a chef cooking with different ingredients, right? They put the different ingredients together to create this new taste. And that's exactly what our rhetorical devices do. So what is the new meaning? Or what is the new feeling? What is the new emotion? What is the new image? What is the new shift in direction? Or how does this new meaning shift us in direction? How does it relate back to the claim? How does it relate back to the main idea, the message, and the thesis? How does it impact the audience? How does it get the audience to believe in the speaker's message, right? All of those questions, they're part of your analysis in your paragraph. And so if your brain gets to thinking, okay, what are the two things? What rhetorical device is it? What does the device do? How is this proving the message? See, all those questions go together. And then finally, what new meaning is created? Here we have a couple things. Remember, chances are what you're seeing as a rhetorical device will be more than one rhetorical device. Just choose one, or like I did last time, say that this metaphor is juxtaposing, like put them together. So this one, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. So a lot of different things going on here. I'm just going to go with juxtaposition with the two opposing things on either side. It's ask not what you, right, can do for your country, but the two different the two motives, right, the flipping around of the two different phrases. This could also be parallelism in the repetition of ask, but one goes one way, another part of the sentence goes another way. It could be repetition with the word ask. Again, yes, you notice that ask is repeated, but what comes after the two words that are repeated is the heart of your analysis. And how does what comes after the two pieces of your repetition, how are they related? Are they the same? Are they different? And then you repeat all the questions that I've been talking about so far in the video to create your analytical paragraph. And then in your analytical paragraph, you're thinking, well, why would the writer choose these words specifically? Why this particular rhetorical device? We know that parallelism creates a balance, right? So that word balance, we got to think about what is the writer trying to balance, literally, in the meaning or the message of her or his speech. We talk about, with repetition, perhaps a flow, a rhythm. Sometimes it is a shift in tone. Tone is related, but if we compare these two things, it's clear that he is creating more description and more of an image around the words than this right here, right? So it becomes, it doesn't just become, don't do this. It becomes, so here, let's do this. So notice it's not don't, it begins with the positive, ask and ask. So I'm always in my head saying, well, what if I wrote this differently, right? Why these words in particular? What if I wrote it? How else could I say this? And then how does that compare to what the writer wrote? This is a very helpful slide for me in thinking about how to write a rhetorical analysis essay. Again, seriously, just put it like I have my wallpaper from the test I took this summer, the things I needed to memorize. Just put this up on your phone. This is, you basically choose your rhetorical device. Is it a rhetorical device? Put it in. You do not need a second example. You just need one example per rhetorical device, per body paragraph, right? For a total of 3. So that is your essay. And know that each rhetorical device has to be followed by a thesis statement, like one whole thesis statement. So I would write your thesis statement first before thinking about your claims, right? All right, we're going to go with a syndeton. I love a syndeton because, well, first of all, Obama is like, that's all, it's all over his speeches if you get an Obama speech. It's like a list, right? Either a list of words, but oftentimes a list of phrases, so more words together than just one. And it's just one right after another, but there's no conjunction. There's no and, there's no or, there's no but. It just kind of goes, right? And it's almost like, I think of a syndeton like a car without brakes. It keeps going, and it's like going downhill. It's like the writer just does not want to stop, does not want to say an and or but. Sometimes it's like the words are so important that they just come out, or sometimes it tells us, all right, it leads to a sense of urgency or importance. It's like it's too important to stop with an and, a but, or. I'm just going to continue with my commas, maybe throw in a semicolon or a dash, but that it's still a syndeton, right? If you have the punctuation one after the other, it's a syndeton. If you had an and in there, that would break it. So there's no pause. So it's often layering different ideas together, like this one, I have found the warm caves in the woods, filled them with skillets, carving, shelves, closets, sinks. So she's listing things, right? Here, for the second one, I speak here as a politician and also a Catholic, a layperson baptized and raised in the pre-Vatican II Church, educated, attached. So that begins with some verb phrases. There's a lot to analyze with a syndeton, but I like it because it already gives us built-in analysis. It already is speaking to a shift in energy, a shift in tone, perhaps leading to something important. I was just working with a student with a syndeton, with a student here on Obama again. Obama is the king of a syndeton. And like he highlighted this, he's like, yeah, this is a syndeton. And we talked about it. And it's a massive sentence, right? And there's just one phrase or clause after another. And he counted like 4 different clauses or pieces of the sentence put together without a conjunction, just comma, comma, comma. And what I love about it is that I've noticed here, over the course of writing my book. So I think, okay, how does it relate to a meaning? Well, course is like a journey, this path. And so he is already setting up that something is going to be long, right? And so then we get into this sentence, and at the last part, he says he references Lincoln, and he said I stood a greater chance of leading us in the direction of the America we've been promised. I'm like, oh, that's perfect analysis for Asyndeton, because he's actually talking about leading right down this path, leading a country towards something. There's a direction, there's a goal. So that matches with a sentence that, with the urgency of the sentence that cannot stop, right? He is on a path going in the direction. And so that's built-in analysis. You're always comparing the function, the job of the rhetorical device, Asyndeton, what it does, what it looks like, what it creates, what feeling it creates, with what's actually the words that are happening in the sentence. And that builds your analysis. Here's some reasons why a writer would choose Asyndeton. We went over it. To bring emphasis, we didn't really talk about. To give the impression that you're just speaking off the cuff. And we call that speaking extemporaneously. That you're not planned, that you're really connecting with the audience, like you're really having a moment with them, because it seems like you're going off in a different direction, but he knows that he's not. He's well planned. He's doing it for a reason, to perhaps engage with the audience, like have your language be at a level that is engaging to them. Like you feel like you're sitting with Obama at the kitchen table, because he's just, he's laying it out for you and feels like it's going in a different direction. So there's the opposite of Asyndeton. If we think about asynchronous learning, that means you're apart from the classroom, right? You're separated. Polysyndeton is many. So A is without. So you're without a conjunction, right? Poly is with many. So you have many conjunctions. So if you see a sentence with like a lot of ands, or a lot of buts, or a lot of ors, or a lot of so's, then that's definitely polysyndeton. And that stops things. And you're going a little bit slower, and you're chunking things down, and you're breaking it apart for your reader. And so think about everything that is opposite of Asyndeton is polysyndeton. So what asyndeton looks like in another sentence is the repetition of commas, right? Can join, and the semicolons. And then you have to figure out to what effect is it creating. There we go again. And thinking about extemporaneous speaking or off the cuff. And then I want to really drive home the importance of, again, you found your rhetorical device, you identify what makes it a rhetorical device, then you think what new meaning is being created out of this rhetorical device, how and why, right? But you have to connect it to a universal idea. And that usually comes from the message, which is in the thesis, right? So locate that universal idea, locate the emotion, right? Put a name to it, and then locate your rhetorical device. And why do you think the writer is using it with that particular universal idea or abstract noun, or that emotion, and to what effect? Like, how does that create something new, and how does that impact the audience? So we're going to go back to the beginning with repetition. I mean, there's always repetition, and repetition is sort of like the foundation or the baseline for a lot of other rhetorical devices. But if you notice repetition, that is awesome. Sometimes what I do is I kind of scan real quick before, like, do I notice that they're beginning paragraphs a certain way? Do I notice, like, that's a huge one, right? And then I also scan for question marks, because then I kind of have one. I have a rhetorical question. Most likely it's going to be a rhetorical question. And that is a question that doesn't need an answer. So we'll get into that in a minute. So repetition, and here if you think about this umbrella, the two main stems of repetition would be, so I realize with parallelism, I already have a video, It's rhetorical device video number 1. And so if you're looking at the slideshow that I made for you with all the rhetorical devices, the very first slide is a list of all of the rhetorical devices that we have thus far. We will be learning more. And the first video will be repetition, parallelism, analogy, colloquialism, and all the things that go with irony, like litotes, sarcasm, understatement, overstatement. The second video contains a synonym, polysyndeton, rhetorical questions, juxtaposition, and so just so you can split it. I just want to make sure that we understand rhetorical questions, because that's the piece that I did not get to in this video. Anytime, if I scan the text and I see question marks, I'm going to assume 90% of the time it is a rhetorical question. The author is not looking for an answer. The author is it's almost like an exclamation, right? It's that emphasis that that tells you something is really important, or they're making a point. And it's a great opportunity for you to dig into analysis by counting the number of question marks you see. Maybe there's a trend or a pattern. And they should, a lot of times if a writer is asking rhetorical questions, it's a way to engage the audience and make them feel like I always say, like, in it with the speaker, like they're a part of answering this question. A lot of times when someone asks you a question, you feel obligated to answer. And that's exactly what is happening in the speech when that speaker is asking the audience questions. That puts the audience in a position where not only are they in it with the speaker, they're part of the problem or they're part of the issue, but they feel like they have to, because there's this, awkward silent moment there, or second. So I said a sense of obligation to adopt the speaker's message. And again, a phrase like that is something that you can use in your writing, right? You want to use the function or the job of this rhetorical device, and especially with audience impact. So that is all so far. I hope this helps. And I do want to refer you specifically to this slide deck. I think it's a great opportunity for you to just review things. Every single slide I made in here about every single rhetorical device so far is in here. So it's a lot. Just, take what you want. Thank you. Parallelism and alliteration.